And so what I'm going to tackle next is going to be a few things here today. I'm going to get all the body work found and done on this bed because honestly, I'm not impressed with the finish on the outer skins on either side. They're far from flawless, and the flaws are big enough that I don't think that just wet sanding primer would take them out. I mean, because that's what I was first thinking after I started seeing just how kind of wavy and stuff all these panels are. I just thought, well, I'll just put a heavy coat of wet sanding primer on it, sand it all down. Well, that's going to cost a lot. And it's going to take half a day to sand it all down. And then I might have to just go ahead and prime it again, especially after hitting it all day with 150 or 180 grit. You can't just epoxy prime over that and paint over that. You've got to probably prime it again. So, that's a heck of a solution in itself. But I honestly think the flaws are too deep. There's too many. And then they're too deep. And so I'm finding a lot of stuff on this truck, on this bed. One thing I'm going to have to do is this. One of the very first things I'm going to do today is I'm going to put a big fiberglass repair in here, and I'm going to fill this with fiberglass. Then I've got all kinds of other things to do, and I don't know how well this will show up on camera at all, but right here is a divot. It's not a dent, but it just didn't come out of the press quite right. The finish work on it isn't right. And I'll try and capture it. What you're looking for is a ridge right here. And inside of that ridge is kind of dished in. Try and bring you along for this ride. Try and get the light just right where you can see the little shadow of this ridge right here. And so there's that, and that's pretty deep. And then when I start looking down the sides here, I see it's just got a lot of chop to it. And that's probably not going to show up on camera. But this is not ready to paint smooth. It just isn't. There's a lot of chop through here. It's sloppy. It's a sloppy finish. There's an Audi right here that you can see probably easily. But that's not them, that was me. When I was pulling this in and pushing it out and getting my situation and my measurements all figured out and shoving it this way and seeing what my limits were, I must have done that on that inner brace. But when I settled out and put it right where it goes, it pulled away from that inner brace. So I can just knock that in with a shrinking hammer and fix it while I'm fixing everything else. But this wasn't them, this was me. And I did a similar thing over here, but it's not nearly as pronounced. But right here I did it again. And I didn't realize any of it until after I had done them both, way later. But it doesn't matter. We've got a ding right here that came in the fender. That could have been from shipping or anything else. That's the sort of stuff you expect to find right there. But what I don't expect to find is this is really sloppy in here. The workmanship, the final, what they call final is really sloppy in here. That's going to show up in the gloss. And then right here is actually dished in. Like I said, this is choppy and not finish work. And this is dished in. I don't know if that shows up or not. But yeah, this is dished in right here. A space that big. You might be able to see it like that maybe. This little screen is not conducive to me being able to see exactly what you're going to be seeing on your TV screen. But yeah, it's basically a big full-on, it's not a dent, but I have to treat it just like a dent. It's dished in. So I've got quite a bit to do to this on both sides. And again, we got a little crease dent right here and right here where something came up against it. Up here, it's choppy. It's got an Audi right here and it's a little wavy right in here. Sloppy workmanship. That's not what I would call a finished panel at all. So I've got a lot to do here on this bed. And that's what I'm going to be doing here this morning. That's why I'm not tackling any of the bodywork on the truck just yet, of which there is a lot. A lot. This thing is going to be covered. But the bed isn't going to be covered, but it's going to have more than a new bed should have. So I'm going to go ahead and tackle that first because this afternoon when I gather up the crew, I'm wanting to pull this bed off of here and set it on some sawhorses. At that point, I'll go ahead and pull the hood and hang it from one of these bigger ladders. And that'll give me, the opportunity to decide when exactly I'm going to pull this truck outside because it's snowing right now and has been since last night. But then I can just decide when I'm going to pull this truck out and get all this sandblasting done. But I don't want to be doing all that body work on the bed while the bed's on sawhorses, while you're moving it around and it's mounted solid right here. This is where I should be doing the body work. So that's what I'm going to do first. Good morning. I do have my work cut out for me. Very odd. I was pretty impressed. I'm going to do what I always do on these trucks. And that just happens to be my thing, by the way. shot for me, Kevin. This paint job's probably 5-6 years old. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. And here he is leaving. It wasn't quite as fun as I was expecting. And that starts right about now. You know, here on this driver's side where this gas cap goes, I'm gonna go ahead, you see I've got it prepped. I scratched it with a scratch pad, then I went over everything with 180 anyway to get good scratches in there. Almost took all the paint off, in fact. Now I'm going to put packing tape, clear packing tape over the back side here. Nice tight layer of clear packing tape over the back side. Then I'm gonna put a big fiberglass patch, a good size one. Then I'm gonna put paper tape over the outside. The only reason I'm not using packing tape over the outside is because it doesn't really matter. On the outside, I can use paper tape because if it doesn't unmask 100% correctly and leave some of it behind, I can just sit and pick it all off. Whereas the inside, if it does that, I gotta crawl up under there to do it. So that's the only difference. So I'll unmask the packing tape and it'll unmask nice and clean. And then on the outside, I'll unmask the paper tape, and if it doesn't want to come clean, I'll make it come clean. So it doesn't really matter. That's the whole reason I'm doing it that way. Well, okay, this has had plenty of time to sit. Now I'm going to go ahead and unmask it here. And a little over 1/8 of an inch. So instead, I'll just prep it, fill it with filler, do all my body work around it, and then I'll go ahead at that point and do all the remaining body work that's on this side as well while I'm at it. Okay, well, now that I've got this side and the other side sanded, not scratched, but sanded, so they're mostly ready to go, I'm gonna go ahead and turn my attention to the front here and get this chrome off of here so I can get onto some of this body work. I don't want my body work to be interrupted. There's no reason. That chrome's coming off and we know it. So we'll get everything off of there, and then we'll go ahead and initiate some body work up here. Really what's important by the end of the day is that I have the bed in primer. That's the big priority, so tomorrow I can block down the bed, get it all initially blocked down and sanded while it's still mounted to something solid. And then after that's done, we can go ahead and remove the bed and put it on sawhorses and get off to the rest of the procedure here. But for today, I'm just going to be removing this chrome and doing some of this body work until we get close enough to the end of the day that I can get this bed in primer. Well, okay, as you just saw, I got all the chrome off of here, and what I was kind of expecting to find behind most of this chrome was a bunch of these clips with these little studs that hold them on. And I could just pull the clip off and grind the little stud off. What I wasn't expecting was Ford to have built fasteners right into the chrome that go right through the fender. And so I'd imagine the box would have been the same way. We'd had to do it the stock way. I wasn't going to. I was going to rivet on a bunch of these and put the chrome on the back, but once the plan changed, all that went out the window. It didn't matter anyway. And so what I'm going to do here, since I can get to the back side of these, is I'm going to prep the back side of every one of these, except for this one. I can't get to the back side of that one easily, but the rest of these I'm going to prep, and I'm just going to put a little fiberglass patch on the back side of every one of these. Same with there. I'll put a little fiberglass patch on the back side of these. I can't get to this one, so I'll have to dent this one in a little bit with a shrinking hammer and patch it. But I'll be doing some of that anyway on this truck because I've got this antenna hole here, and then I've got a few different deals up top that are similar to this. The top is actually quite active, so I'm going to be putting a lot of inlay on this truck by the time it's all said and done. Good morning, gang. As you saw yesterday, I got the primer on this guy. Now the goal this morning, first thing, is going to be to get it blocked down. Now, when you hear a body guy talk about blocking or boarding something down, what they're talking about is taking linear sandpaper that's long, and putting it on a board or a block and running over the project with it. And you use a different size block depending on what you're doing on the project. Now today, what I'm going to be using here is this size here, probably 12 inch. Biggest one that I've got anyway. To go ahead and I'm going to take 180 grit to it. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run over all this with 180 grit and smooth everything up and get everything even, because I saw nothing but waves and flaws and little dimples. And I saw so much stuff over the last few days working on this and walking around it. And it just had a satin finish, and I still saw so much stuff that was just like, I can't paint it that way. So I've gone ahead and you saw the Bodywork, and then you saw that I primed it. Now today I'm going to go ahead and board it all down, and I could use 220 and then go over that with 320 on a DA sander or 400 on a DA sander. And I could get away with painting this today if I wanted. That's not the goal. What I want to do today is I want to use 180, maybe even 150 grit to board this down and get down into it and actually get all those flaws out. We're not just surface sanding this thing. I want to get the flaws out of it, as many of them as I can. And particularly here and here on both sides, I noticed that it's just heavily flawed. So I want to try and get this as straight as I can with some good cutting sandpaper like 180 or 150. Then right after that's done, I'll get this all blown off. And as soon as I get it blown off, I'll assemble part of the crew. We'll go ahead and pull the bed off, put it on some sawhorses, because I'm done jiggling it as much as I'm going to. So at this point, I can go ahead and get it off of there. Now I can get around all the way around the cab easily. I can really start focusing on the next steps here, which is going to be removing the hood and getting Bodywork going and picking a time to get the chassis sandblasted. And I mean, tons of stuff. So the goal today, of course, is going to be to get the bed sanded, get the bed off of here, and get onto some of this other stuff. So you see what I've run into here. This is what I was expecting, because this is what I saw down the side of this bed here. Now that I've given this just a quick once over with a board, with a block, see that darker spot? That's a little bit of a shallow spot. Not a dent, but like a factory flaw, a little wave in it. There's another one right there. There's see the trailings of one right here that I've almost gotten out. So you can see the difference. That's what I like about this wet sanding primer. You can really see where your shallow spots are. Then I'll be able to sand these out. That's why I did the heavy coat of wet sanding primer. That's why I'm doing this today. By the time I'm done, this won't be here. This won't be here. None of the other 500 that I'll expose throughout the course of this will be here, because I'll get them all sanded nice and flat with that big long board or big long block. And then I'll blow the whole thing off, and then this bed will be ready to be removed. Okay, so at this point I've sanded both sides down basically by hand. Did a little bit of DA work at the bottom, but for the most part they're sanded out completely by hand, all blocked down, ready for the next step. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and get in here and put fiberglass on the back of this fender the back of this, I can't get to the back of that, so I'm gonna have to beat that in with a shrinking hammer. I can't get to the back of this, so I'm gonna have to beat this in with a shrinking hammer, but I can get to the underside of all those ones up there because the headliner just happens to not be in this truck. So I can get in there and get those done as well. And that's gonna be the first thing I do, is I'm gonna prep everything, get everything ready for fiberglass, and get all these little patches on here first thing this morning. Okay, now at this point, I have these tapped in with a shrinking hammer and prepped. Same with that one. Same with that. Now the inside of here is prepped up under there, as you can see. There's like 6 holes. They're all prepped, ready to go. I prepped the back side of this one and this one, and then prepped the back side of every one of these with a 100 grit, just with my hand. That's all I could get to it with. And then what I've done here is I've taken this die grinder with this end on it, and I've taken these holes, which look just like that before I get to them, and turned them into that. And the reason that I've done that and beveled that edge is so I'm doing it now in the project because I don't want to do it later. Because if I do it now, I can get away with beveling these as much as I need, and then when I go to do my body work on the outside, there'll be something it can really sink its teeth into, and it'll all but eliminate the chance of that bodywork cracking right around the outer perimeter of that screw later, because the outer perimeter has been so blurred now. So that's really why I do it. And the reason I do it now versus just later on is because I don't want to dig into, blow through, or thin out my fiberglass patch on the backside of there. And that could easily happen with that tip. So I do this first, then I'll glass the backside, then I'll come through and finish prepping all this with a DA sander, then I'll come through and I'll do all my body work to all these. And each one will just fill in like a nice little bowl, rather than have that jagged straight edge that might crack around it later. That's the reason I'm doing everything in the order that I'm doing it in. Okay, well, I've got all those little fiberglass patches installed on the back of all of those. You can probably see it through a few of them. On the back of all of those, back of that one, and that one. Went ahead and did the shrinking hammer trick on that one and put a big patch, same with that. And then did all of them on the other side and on the top. And those are all in place now. And while I'm waiting for all that to completely cure out, what I'm doing is just going through the interior and taking stuff out and getting it ready, closer and closer to being ready for sandblasting. And in doing so, I'm taking these plugs out of the floor. There's 2 over there, at least 1 over here that I've found so far. This screw stripped out immediately. This one, there's not even enough of it left to even put a screwdriver in. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the die grinder and just grind those out with a burr so I can get that up out of here. And then I'm also sorting through other details. And when you do a cab like this, the interior, it's nothing but details. Because, I mean, it's pretty easy, really, to open the door of an old truck like this and look inside and picture it painted a different color and how you might go about it. But when you actually get inside and start looking around and making actual decisions on what you're going to do next and how exactly you're going to do it, you realize that cabs they're very busy. Even cabs of like equipment. If you paint the interior of like a backhoe or something like that while you're painting the exterior, I've done a lot of construction equipment and dirt moving equipment in my early career. I used to do tons of it, and so I've done a lot of scrapers and dozers and loaders, and I've done loaders so big that the tires just towered over my head that they couldn't even be transported on the highway. I had to show up on site to do them years and years ago. So I'm familiar with it. I mean, you go doing the cab inside, it's much the same. There's decisions everywhere, and that's what I'm looking at here. And just like this, taking out the trailer brake, how far out do we take it? What mounts do we leave? Which ones do we take? What toggles do we leave? Are they ever going to use them again? And there's a bunch of them. There's 3 that I see right off the bat here. So I mean, there's just a plethora of decisions inside the cab of anything that you go to paint. So that's really what I'm starting to try and tackle. Look at one thing at a time, make my decisions, go down the path, just try and get this one item at a time ready for sandblast in here. Okay, so now that I've got the seat out, what we'll do next is I'll go ahead and take this seat belt mount out right here and down there. Now that one's already gone, and I didn't take it out, it just wasn't there. The bottom's been cut, and so the bottom is there, but it's been cut right at there where the canvas leaves the plastic, and the rest of it's all gone. So I don't know what to make of that, but I'm gonna go ahead and remove that, remove this side, remove these, get all this stuff out of here, get these screws that will come out, grind these ones off, and then go ahead and get all this wiring pulled up out of here, get this stuff up out of the way. Okay, well, here I am standing in the back of the truck here looking down on the roof of the cab, and as you can see, I've done quite a bit of sanding here, all the way down through here, all the way to this big spot in the middle, all the way around the bottom and the corner, across the front in numerous places. I've sanded about half of it because that's how much body work there is up here for me to go ahead and do. And the way that I'll typically do these sort of things is I'll go through and I'll sand just the stuff that is going to take filler, not the little tiny little dings or blemishes that are probably going to take glazing. If it's only going to be a glazing repair, I don't sand those first. I just sand the spots that are going to take filler. Then I come through and put in my filler, then I sand it, then I sand those spots down again so they can be ready for glazing. And when I do that, then I'll go ahead and search out all the little tiny blemishes and deep scratches and little tiny dings and spots where I'm going to glaze only. I'll glaze over the bodywork at the same time I'm glazing those. So at this point, all I'm doing here is just marking out what's going to take straight bodywork. And now that this is all good and prepped, I'm going to go ahead and mix up some bodywork and get started on this guy. Well, all right, gang, I've got all the body work done, I think, here on the roof. And all I really need to do now is get up there and sand around the body work and sand any remaining shiny spots and stuff like that. And look it over, of course. And if that's green lit, then I'm going to go ahead and move on and start getting these doors done. And now that I've got a little bit of light on the door, maybe I can show you. It's always hard when I look into this little tiny monitor on the back of this camera to know exactly what quality of anything you're seeing. So some of my footage is odd because of that. But I'm going to go ahead and look down the side here, and I want to try and show you some of the stuff that's wrong with this door that somebody else had previously worked on. Somebody else had previously worked on literally everything except for the new bed. And on a truck this old, I suppose you could expect that, but what I'm looking at is you can actually see the circulature of their DA sander or whatever sander they were using right here. You can see a deep indent of that. See that? And it's below it too. And then there's just, you know, a general unevenness and little dings back in here. There's an Audi right here. Somebody must have slammed the door on something at some point in time. Just a few little swales and dings in here. And then you can just see just choppiness. It just wasn't sanded evenly the last time it was sanded. And when we get down here, again, this is just choppiness. This is all wavy choppiness all the way through here. And I'll try and run the camera across it in a way you can see it. All this, especially up here, but across the door, I'm just basically going to surface this entire panel and this entire panel because there's no sense in nitpicking. It's covered in garbage. Pretty decent ding right there. I wouldn't blame that on the previous body person. Ding right there. Little bitty crack. Fairly normal stuff. Little ding right there. And then on the other side, we have a quite a bit bigger dent in that spot. Right here. You see that one? That's big, that's pretty good sized. That I think could have happened when the front of this got hit by that grill guard that came back into it. And then of course I have all this body work to do. But just flattened out bad body work there. You see it's had a flat top on it, but it's indent. It's like a reverse plateau. A little dish with a flat bottom, dings. And then this door, you can see they buffed all the way through it. I think what happened was somebody took the door stickers off and the adhesive left behind. Oftentimes, they'll actually raise. You've heard me talk about this many times. That's why I color sand, or not color sand, but that's why I prime in heavy high build epoxy primer and sand down doors all the time. Is because door stickers, even though you get them completely off the door, they actually leave the surface they were sitting on raised oftentimes to the point where it'll come right through gloss. It'll look effortless. It'll almost look like somebody left tape on the door and just painted over it. I mean, it can get pretty ridiculous what stickers do to paint. And I think that's what happened here. And I think somebody color sanded it out. But I think that they just went too far and went through the thin layer of new orange paint, because this has no orange peel whatsoever in the paint. None. It's like glass. So that means that they sanded out all the orange peel. And then you can just see they just went too far in many, many, many places. But even so, there's a good sized dent right there. See if we can show it to you. I can't really see if I'm showing it to you, but I'm trying. And then the rest is just generally unwavy. Or uneven and wavy all the way down. And then up here we've got this that I knocked in with a shrinking hammer and put a fiberglass patch on. That has to be taken care of. And down this side of the door is much like the other side. It's just generally wavy all the way down. It just was done by somebody who either didn't know what they were doing, which is quite forgivable, or somebody that didn't care. And if you don't care, but it's your truck, quite forgivable. I don't know the history of this truck, so I can't really judge. I don't know if this was done in a body shop or who did the work. But their standards weren't as high as they probably needed to be. We'll put it that way. But before we get too crazy about getting started on that truck, I've got this huge box of things I need to go through that showed up yesterday. I haven't, all I did was cut the top. I haven't even officially opened it yesterday. I just cut it with a razor. And a few days ago, the brand new rear lamps came in, and also the marker lights that are supposed to go all the way around came in. And so now I'm gonna go ahead and go through this box and see what all is in it. You know, a trick that I always do when I go to unpack boxes, and they have sometimes very long, sometimes 12, 15 foot long ribbons of these air packed things, is I just go get a razor before I even get started. And then you use one of the leaves of the box, and then you just run the band of pressurized air packing underneath your razor, and it just slits each one of them. You just find a surface like this corner, you just put a little pressure on it, and you just drag each one of them through it. And then you can have a trash can right here and just drop it right in the trash if you want. That's the way I've done these boxes for years. Just pull it right across it. Flattens them out as they go. And they're ready to be thrown away. How's that for a parts list? Well, there's a lot of miscellaneous parts here. A lot. Looks like we've got some chrome pieces, maybe go on the interior. Bunch of different screws. Bunches of bags and bags and bags of individual screws, which are numbered. Pigtails for lights. Looks like maybe marker lights, maybe tail lights. I'm not really sure. We'll just have to look into it. The little cups that go inside of the door that you grab when you reach to grab the door handle. And this looks like to me to be a carpet pad. Looks like it's got the foil on the one side, the padding on the other. This is probably the carpet pad for the floor of the cab. And this looks like the carpet itself. And these look like the door panels. These look like parking brake cables. And this looks like the chrome that goes underneath the wheel wells. And here we have the armrests that go on the door panels. Well, now at this point, I'm going to run down every single thing on this parts list and make sure that everything showed up so I can let him know if it didn't. And as soon as I'm done with that, then I'm going to go ahead and get started on the doors and get the bodywork done on this pickup.
Splice Original.
Would you look at that? A little over half an inch of rain in almost the middle of December. It's December 9th today. But we don't have to concern ourselves with a rainy December day when what we've got going on is a whole heap of bodywork. Okay, now at this point I want to stop for a second and go over a thing or two. One thing is, the reason I have this tape, which is actually Gorilla duct tape, so it's really thick duct tape, it just happens to be in white. And I have put it on here, and on the other side I put it on both sides. Here I didn't put it on this side because I've just been having better luck just opening the door. When I'm over here with my block and I'm sanding away, it's fine. But as soon as I want to go over this edge, I just open the door a little bit and hold it open with my other hand and go over the edge, and I'm fine. But I don't really have that luxury here, so I'll always just, on vehicles like this where I have a bunch of body work to do to the door, I'll always put a couple of of lines of any sort of tape, you know, masking tape of any sort. But if I know I'm going to be going over it with heavy grit board and it's going to see potentially quite a bit of action, I'll just go ahead and do duct tape first time around. And especially if I intend to paint the whole vehicle anyway, because duct tape will pull up paint. So if it's a risk, you definitely don't want to use duct tape. But I use duct tape here because I'm going to be going completely over this anyway. And that's just so when my board goes over at all, it just hits the duct tape and it doesn't sit and scar this up and add a bunch of deep, straight scrapes into my list of things I need to do over here. So that's just one trick you can do to kind of isolate a panel when you're working on it like this, especially with any kind of intensity. And the other thing I want to show you is, you see how I beveled out these holes? And then I went over the whole thing with a brand new 3-inch roll-off disc. And what that does is that actually dishes all that in, the whole thing in. And then it's beveled right there too, on all of them. So you've got the bevel, and then you've got the fact that the whole thing is dished in a little bit because I took after it with a 24 grit roll-off disc. And what that does is it just creates an entire dish that you fill with bodywork. That way that hole will never show up again. The bevel stops it from showing up, and then having the whole thing dished in just a hair really guarantees it. That little hole, even though the back of that hole's been fiberglassed, the outline of a hole could easily show up again in the future. And I'll show you an example of that right on this vehicle. Let's see if I can get it in the light here. It's right here. See that? That's an old hole. For whatever reason, there was a hole in this cab. Any number of reasons. And they went over it with bodywork. Probably didn't fiberglass the backside. Of course, you can't get to the backside of this one. And that's what they look like when they come back. So if you want to prevent that, bevel them out and even go the extra step and just dish the whole thing out just a hair, and your glazing will fill it all nicely. So that's really what I'm going to do here. I'm going to go ahead and finish up my bodywork down here, take that tape off, finish up the bodywork there and there and there on the other side. I never did do the other side yet on that. And then I'll move up and get this guy and get this old hole filled. It's really dished in, so I'll be able to just fill the whole thing easily. And then the bodywork that's on the back of the cab here, this bodywork that's right here that somebody else did that you can still see. I'll just go over all that stuff and finish up this side of the cab before I go ahead and unbolt and then remove the hood. Well, okay, at this point I've got all that body damaged in bodywork and then in glazing. Everything else has been in bodywork and then in glazing. Now at this point I'm going to go ahead and shift gears, set up some sawhorses down at the other end of the shop for the box to go, and then set up a place for the hood to go so I can go ahead and get them off of here. All right, we're in it neck deep now. We got the hood off, got the box off. Now I'm gonna go ahead and get this outside and get the bottom of the interior sandblasted, get the entire exterior of the frame sandblasted, and a lot of the interior and a lot of the components underneath, like the differential and that sort of thing. It's gonna be a pretty complete job. And that way I can do that this afternoon, hopefully. We're expecting rain today, and we'll see how it goes. And get this in, and now I can go ahead and finish welding on the front of the box and get it 100% ready to go. Finish up the body work on the tailgate because of all those pinch welds, and get everything 100% ready to go. Get, like I said, this all welded up, get it bolted up here at the front, and get the box ready for paint. And at this point, I've got all my welding done on this bed completely. I went ahead and put my welder up. As you can see, I got a bunch of spots here on the outside. There was 2 or 3 or 4. I don't remember how many on the inside. Same here. As many as half a dozen on the inside, and then another good half a dozen out here. Welded that up solid, both sides. So now that all the welding's finally done, I got my welder put up, and now I'm ready to move on to the next step, which is going to be to go ahead and start addressing some of the mini issues with this hood. Okay, now I've gone and wiped this down with wax and grease remover. I can have a better look at it. And speaking of a better look at it, I went and fetched my 4-foot mobile light. I've had this light for probably 30 years, and it takes those old neon bulbs. Well, one of the bulbs I think is burned out or really close to it. Plus, when I plug it in, only the top light is working, and this one I can hear sparking going on this end. Flashes once in a while, I can hear a little sparking going on. It's got this burnt mark here at this end, which means it's not going to be long-lived anyways, long in the tooth as far as lights are concerned. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is take this whole light off of this post, and then I'm going to go ahead and get a 4-foot shop light, because I keep replacement shop lights around here, and I'm just going to find a way to mount a 4-foot shop light to it so I can just use that from here on out. Just like that. Unscrewed the old one, got it out of there. Just used some heavy duty white Gorilla duct tape to hold this to it, because these go out with some frequency. They don't last all that long, and so if something happens, I'll just slit that with a razor blade and get that off of there and replace it. These weigh about a pound and a half is all. I mean, they weigh nothing. So now this whole setup weighs a lot less, and now I can just keep replacing these as need be. And at least this light has an on-off switch, which is more than I can say for the original. And now that that little issue's been taken care of, I'm gonna go ahead, get on with the show. Okay, so what I've done here is I've gone ahead and sanded these back, all the risky spots back, just to see how they would sand. And even though I've gone quite a ways back out around it, it's nice and fuzzy edges. That's really what you're looking for. If it's a sharp edge, no matter how well you try and blend it, that means it's not connected all that well. And this is connected all that well. I think that what happened was when that grill guard came back and smacked this hood and smacked the front of the grill and everything else back there, or up there on the front of the truck, I think it shocked this, and I think it rattled some of that loose. Or it could have been that somebody did some body work or some finish work over something that wasn't prepped right. Either way, I've got it all back to where I feel comfortable with it. Same with that. This is going to require some filler, and like this, just nice fuzzy edge. I trust what's there now. Now that I've seen it, now that I see how everything's connected, it seems good enough. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do at this point is I'm gonna do that little spot down there in the corner that needs the filler. That's, I think, the only spot that does. And then once I get that filler sanded, I'm gonna go ahead and sand every single square centimeter of this thing down with 180, and I'm gonna cover all of it except for this. This is pretty decent shape. There's a little ding in it, a couple little dings in it, but outside of that, this is in decent shape. But the rest of this is all gonna get skim coated in glazing, and then it's gonna get boarded down just like the rest of the truck did. And then I'm gonna go ahead and high build epoxy prime it from there.